Aquarius. Thank you for being here with me today. There are nights when everything outside still looks completely normal. Your phone lights up a few times. You can still hear cars moving somewhere in the distance, but deep inside yourself, it feels like something is quietly shifting. And lately, I think you've been feeling that too. A pull that's hard to explain. An energy that keeps finding its way back into your mind during the quietest moments of the day. No matter how busy you try to keep yourself, there's still someone your heart hasn't fully let go of. And what's interesting is, it feels like the other person may be going through that same feeling right now, because the message coming through in today's reading is strong. In Aquarius, this doesn't feel like one of those passing emotions that fades after a few days. Someone woke up with a completely different realization about you. Something shifted inside them after a long night of silence. The distance between you didn't make these feelings disappear. If anything, it made them realize just how deeply you matter in their life. The more they tried to keep space between you, the harder it became to stop thinking about you. And what the cards are showing today is this. This person doesn't want to stay on the sidelines anymore. They're slowly starting to move beyond their own hesitation, and the very first card appearing around this energy is Judgment. There's something very different about the energy surrounding Aquarius right now. It doesn't feel uncertain the way it used to. This no longer feels like one of those connections that drifts in and out, the kind that makes two people think about each other constantly, only to fall back into silence like nothing ever happened. Because what today's reading is showing is this. Someone has gone through a deep emotional shift within themselves, and the most important part is it happened quietly. Maybe it was during a sleepless night. One of those late hours when everything around them finally went still. No work, no noise, no distractions left to hide behind. Just the truth of what they've been feeling for a very long time. And somewhere inside that silence, they started realizing that their feelings for Aquarius never actually disappeared. The first card coming through here is Judgment, and this is not the kind of card that shows up for passing emotions. It usually appears when someone is going through a powerful inner awakening, almost like they can no longer keep lying to themselves about what they feel. This person tried to rationalize everything. They tried to convince themselves this connection was something they could control, something they could move on from, or at the very least, set aside for a while. But the more distance they created, the more they realized there was still an empty space inside them shaped exactly like you. And the biggest shift here isn't the emotion itself. It's the fact that they finally stopped fighting it. And once Judgment appears beside the King of Wands, the energy changes completely, because the King of Wands is not passive energy. This is movement, decision, action after a long internal battle. It feels like this person has finally reached a very clear realization. They don't want to keep losing you. You know, Aquarius. Sometimes people only understand the depth of their feelings when they sense they could truly lose someone. And the harder this person tries to act normal, the more they feel your presence everywhere around them. A random song playing at the wrong time. An old message they still haven't deleted. A late night drive alone with too much on their mind. Or even something as small as their phone lighting up for a second. And part of them still hoping it's you. Then the Chariot appears as the final confirmation that this energy is no longer staying inside their thoughts. Something is beginning to move, quietly, but very clearly. This person is slowly stepping out of their old hesitation, and for the first time in a long while, they're seriously thinking about moving closer to Aquarius again. But what's interesting is this. While the other person is becoming more certain about their feelings, Aquarius seems to be going through a very different kind of battle internally. It's not that you don't feel what's happening here. In fact, Aquarius, your intuition feels stronger right now than it normally does. There are moments when you almost know exactly what this person is thinking about you. You can feel that the energy between the two of you never truly disappeared. You can sense that there are still things left unsaid between you. But strangely enough, the more clearly you feel it, the quieter you become. And this is exactly where the High Priestess appears. Almost like a mirror reflecting your inner world back to you. Because this is the energy of someone who feels everything deeply, but rarely says all of it out loud. Aquarius can walk into a room and instantly notice when the energy shifts. You can hear a completely ordinary sentence and still pick up on the emotion hiding underneath it. The problem is, when your intuition becomes this strong, it can also leave your heart exhausted, because you don't only see the beautiful possibilities inside a connection, you also see every possible way it could hurt you. And that's where the Seven of Cups begins to show itself. This card carries the feeling of a mind that hasn't truly rested in a long time. Aquarius has been thinking about this person constantly. Maybe even more than you're willing to admit to yourself. You wonder if the signs you've been feeling are actually real. You wonder if they think about you the same way you think about them. You wonder whether this connection is finally opening into something deeper, or if it's only going to become another unfinished emotional cycle. There are nights when your body feels exhausted, but your mind refuses to fully shut off. You reread old conversations, replay songs that remind you of that specific period between you. Or sometimes you just sit there watching your phone light up in the dark, wondering how one person somehow ended up taking up this much emotional space inside you. Aquarius usually tries to appear okay with everything. That's almost instinctive for you. But the Queen of Swords shows that underneath the calm exterior is a heart that has learned how to protect itself very well. You don't want to fall into something uncertain. You don't want to hand your emotions over to someone who still feels unclear. And honestly, Aquarius has lived through enough to understand how painful it is to hope for the wrong person. So now, even when your heart starts softening a little, your mind still stands there, like a door that hasn't fully opened yet. Part of you wants to move closer, to stop analyzing everything, to simply feel this connection for what it is. But another part of you still quietly asks, what if I'm the one who ends up hurting more again? And maybe that inner conflict is exactly why the energy between the two of you has remained suspended inside this strange kind of silence. Because while Aquarius is trying to keep their heart safe, the other person seems to be falling deeper into their feelings with every passing day. And what seems to overwhelm them the most is this: everything happens so intensely, too fast, too deeply, too real, and completely outside the way they usually control their emotions. The Ace of Cups appears here, almost like a wave crashing through walls this person spent years building around themselves. This is no longer a light attraction or temporary curiosity. There's something about Aquarius that opened their heart in a way they never expected. Maybe it's your difference, your unpredictability, the way you can feel close to someone while still carrying a private inner world nobody fully reaches. And the harder they try to stay rational, the more they realize these feelings are going much further than they ever wanted to admit. What's especially strange for them is this: they're not used to needing someone this much. They once believed they could move through life perfectly fine without depending on emotional connection. They thought keeping everything under control would always be enough. But the Six of Swords shows that an older version of them is slowly fading away. A very quiet transformation is happening inside this person. They're beginning to move away from the version of themselves that always kept a safe emotional distance. They're starting to revisit feelings they spent years avoiding. And for the first time in a very long time, they're asking themselves whether they may actually be losing someone truly important. There are moments when this person sits alone for long stretches of time just thinking about Aquarius. Driving home after an exhausting day, lying awake in the dark, unable to fall asleep right away. They remember the way you used to speak, the way you go quiet when something hurts you, the subtle shifts in your energy that nobody else would notice, but they always did. And the more they remember, the harder it becomes to return to the emotional distance they once lived in. Then the Page of Cups appears here, like the softest part of their heart finally starting to surface. Because underneath all the calm composure, this person is carrying a very real fear. They're afraid of rejection, afraid that once they say something, everything changes. Afraid Aquarius may not feel the same way anymore. But at the same time, they also can't keep pretending they feel nothing. There are words they've rehearsed in their mind over and over again. Messages typed out and deleted. Moments when they wanted to reach for you directly, only to stop themselves at the last second because their emotions suddenly felt too overwhelming. And Aquarius, sometimes the people who appear the most emotionally mature in love are actually the ones most afraid of it, because they understand exactly how painful it is to lose someone who truly matters. So the more real this connection begins to feel, the more vulnerable they become around your presence. What the cards are showing here is not someone playing with emotions. This is someone who has kept everything locked inside for far too long, to the point where even their own heart can no longer stay silent. And once feelings begin to outweigh fear, everything usually starts shifting into a completely different phase. Because after holding everything inside for so long, this person is finally starting to turn their feelings into real action. It's no longer just about missing you in silence. No longer just lying awake at night wondering, what if? The energy is beginning to move in a much more grounded direction now. The Knight of Pentacles appears first as a sign that this person doesn't want to approach Aquarius impulsively and then disappear again. They're thinking seriously about how to step back into your life one more time, slowly, but sincerely. This feels like someone who may take a very long time to make a decision, but once they finally do, they rarely change their mind afterward. And lately, it seems like this person has been quietly reorganizing their life in a very different way. Old priorities are shifting, their routines are changing. Even the way they respond to the world around them feels different now. And what's interesting is, so many of those changes seem unconsciously connected to Aquarius. Maybe they're showing up more often in places where they might run into you, paying closer attention to how quickly they respond to messages, or simply creating more opportunities for connection instead of falling back into silence the way they used to. Because the Knight of Pentacles is not the energy of grand promises. It's the energy of someone proving how they feel through small actions repeated consistently over time. And sometimes those quiet little changes reveal far more than a beautiful confession ever could. Then we move into the Two of Wands. And this card carries the feeling of someone who has finally chosen the direction their heart wants to go. Before this, they were caught between too many thoughts, too many doubts, still trying to keep emotional distance as a form of self-protection. But now, that resistance doesn't feel as strong anymore. They're beginning to look toward Aquarius like someone they genuinely want to move closer to, not during a passing emotional moment, but through serious thoughts about the future. There's a very quiet preparation happening underneath the surface. This person is watching for the right moment, watching how Aquarius responds, trying to sense whether there's still a door between you that hasn't completely closed yet. And the deeper they look into this connection, the more they realize they don't want to keep standing still anymore. Then the Eight of Wands appears, and this is where the energy suddenly starts moving much faster. Things that felt delayed for a very long time may now begin unfolding quickly within a short period of time. Messages, unexpected appearances, conversations that seem completely ordinary at first, but slowly open the door to something much deeper underneath. This person may not approach Aquarius with overly dramatic words, but their energy is becoming far more direct now. You'll feel it in the way they hold eye contact a little longer than before, in the way they try to maintain the connection instead of disappearing whenever emotions become too real, in the way they slowly begin allowing Aquarius deeper into their private world. And what the cards seem to be showing here is this: everything may only be beginning. Because behind all of these actions that are becoming more visible, there are still many emotions this person hasn't fully spoken out loud yet. And the closer they get to Aquarius, the harder it becomes for them to hide what's happening inside. These feelings are no longer just alike. They run much deeper, deep enough that even they start to feel a little afraid of the intensity. The Lovers appears here like a strong confirmation that what they're seeking in Aquarius isn't just a fleeting attraction. This is the kind of connection that makes someone begin to imagine sharing their life with another person. Not just the beautiful moments, but the ordinary, everyday ones too. Late night dinners after a long day, small conversations in the kitchen at midnight, or simply the feeling of having someone quietly present in their world in a completely natural way. What unsettles them the most is, Aquarius has somehow become the image they think of when imagining peace. Maybe they've never said this to anyone. Maybe they haven't even fully admitted it to themselves. But the energy of the Lovers shows their heart has already made its choice. The challenge now is just for the mind to catch up with the heart. Then the Nine of Cups appears. This card always carries the feeling of a deep, heartfelt desire, and here, Aquarius is that desire. They might still try to maintain a calm exterior, still act as if it hasn't affected them too much. But in the quiet moments alone, they think about you far more than you realize. There are nights they imagine what it would be like if you both fully opened up to each other, if the distance disappeared, if no one had to pretend to be strong anymore. They imagine being with Aquarius in the most ordinary ways, but in the truest, most real sense. A short trip, a weekend with no rush, or simply the relief of hearing your voice after a long, exhausting day. What's remarkable is, those imaginings no longer feel far away. They're beginning to become what they genuinely want in real life. And then the Four of Wands appears, revealing the deepest layer of emotion beneath all that's still unspoken. Because if we're honest, what they want isn't just emotional connection. They want to feel a sense of belonging, a place they can come back to after all the pressures of the outside world and feel at peace. And strangely enough, it's the energy of Aquarius that makes them feel this. The Four of Wands is the card of stability, of a spiritual home, of a future that no longer feels temporary. They're beginning to see Aquarius as a true part of their life. Not a fleeting connection that comes and goes, not a feeling that exists only in lonely moments, but someone they want to hold on to for a long time. Perhaps that's why they remain so quiet. Because sometimes the deepest feelings are the hardest to put into words. especially when you know that once you speak them, things may never be the same again. And it's this very silence that makes the energy between the two of you grow in intensity in a very special way. Because both of you can feel something rising, even if neither of you has fully named it yet. And maybe that's exactly why the energy surrounding the near future in this reading feels so bright. There's far less confusion here now. It no longer feels like one person moving closer while the other immediately pulls away. Things are slowly moving toward clarity. Slowly, but genuinely changing. The sun appears first like a beam of light breaking through the long silence between the two of you. This is the card of clarity, of emotions finally being seen for what they truly are. It feels like in the near future, some of the misunderstandings or emotional distance between Aquarius and this person may begin dissolving naturally. Not because someone is forcing things to happen, but because both of you may simply be exhausted from hiding your feelings for so long. The sun often appears when a connection begins stepping out of the shadows of doubt. And Aquarius, you may start noticing very obvious changes in this person. The way they look at you, the way they keep conversations going longer than before, or the way they no longer disappear so easily when emotions become deeper. There's something very warm inside this card. Almost like after a long stretch of cloudy days, both people are finally beginning to see each other more clearly in real light. And then the Ten of Pentacles appears immediately after. This is not the energy of a short-lived connection. This card usually speaks about something that has the potential to last, if both people care for it the right way. What feels especially important here is this person is no longer thinking about Aquarius as a temporary feeling. They're beginning to think further ahead now, thinking about how to keep this connection stable, how to show up in your life in a more mature and grounded way, how to create safety between the two of you, instead of always living inside uncertainty. The Ten of Pentacles carries the feeling of future built from things that are real, not beautiful words alone, but presence, consistency, the decision to stay, even after the most confusing emotional phases have passed. But the final card, Temperance, brings a very gentle reminder for Aquarius. Don't rush to force immediate answers from this connection, because sometimes, the more we try to control something meaningful, the easier it becomes to lose the natural flow that made it beautiful in the first place. Temperance is the energy of emotional balance, of allowing things to unfold at their own pace. Aquarius may be used to analyzing everything in order to avoid getting hurt, used for preparing emotionally for the worst-case scenario before it even happens. But this time, the cards seem to be softly reminding you of something important. Not everyone who enters your life is there to hurt you again. Sometimes, certain people arrive to help your heart soften after years of only knowing how to protect itself. And maybe the most important thing right now isn't trying to predict where all of this will lead. Maybe it's whether Aquarius is willing to truly receive the feeling that's already here. Because your intuition has sensed something about this connection for a long time now. And perhaps, what the Aquarius heart is learning now is no longer how to avoid pain, but how to believe that it also deserves a love that feels peaceful, steady, and sincere.